Today we're talking about the layoffs of almost 10,000 federal workers, talks to cut defense spending, peace talks to end the war between Russia and Ukraine, and other top news for Monday, February 17th. Stay informed while remaining focused on Christ with the pour-over today. Here's the quote of the day. The beginning and the end of all Christian leadership is to give your life for others. Henri Nouwen. Let's get started with some espresso shots. Almost 10,000 federal workers were let go on Friday as the White House continues efforts to shrink the government workforce. The layoffs largely targeted probationary employees in their first year at the Department of Interior, HHS, Veterans Affairs, Agriculture, and Energy, including the National Nuclear Security Administration, NNSA, the energy agency responsible for overseeing the U.S. nuclear stockpile. However, a federal judge promptly partly rescinded the NNSA's 325 dismissals in order to retain essential nuclear security staff. The IRS is expected to add to the stack of pink slips this week by laying off thousands of probationary workers at the height of tax season. President Trump has argued the government's 2.3 million person civilian workforce is bloated and inefficient, pointing to the $36 trillion national debt, while congressional Democrats question his constitutional authority over federal spending. Here's a verse to consider whether you're in a season of transition or today is the same old, same old. He has made everything appropriate in its time. He has also put eternity in their hearts, but no one can discover the work God has done from beginning to end. Ecclesiastes 3:11. President Trump has turned his budget-cutting gaze on the Defense Department, which currently accounts for 13% of federal spending. Trump floated the idea of a U.S.-China-Russia summit to discuss trilateral defense reforms, including ending new nuclear weapon production and eventually cutting each country's military spending in half. The commander-in-chief says the countries already have so many nuclear warheads and could allocate saved dollars, or yuan or rubles, toward things that are actually hopefully more productive. Chinese officials say they wouldn't join denuclearization talks unless the U.S. and Russia substantially reduce their nuclear arsenals. Critics argue that cutting defense spending conflicts with Trump's promises to strengthen the military and his executive order for an American Iron Dome missile defense system. Defense stocks were also unenthused. Lockheed Martin, RTX, and Northrop Grumman fell 3% to 7%. Believers may disagree about how governments should spend taxpayer dollars, but commands for Christians' wallets are crystal clear. Prioritize heavenly treasure, generously help the needy, and run from greed. Are you rich toward God in your personal spending habits? Luke 12:31-34 says, "But seek his kingdom, and these things will be provided for you. Don't be afraid, little flock, because your Father delights to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give to the poor. Make money bags for yourselves that won't grow old, an inexhaustible treasure in heaven, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." U.S. delegates are headed to Saudi Arabia for peace talks with Russia. Their goal is to end the war in Ukraine, but President Zelensky says Ukraine's invite must have gotten lost in the mail. Also not on the guest list, any European countries. Not to be sidelined, French President Macron invited European leaders to a summit in Paris today to discuss the war and their new normal with Washington. Meanwhile, fighting continues. Kyiv said a Russian drone with a high explosive warhead pierced the protective shell of the Chernobyl nuclear plant early Friday, starting a brief fire. Nuclear experts say radiation levels haven't increased, and there is no immediate danger. Russia denies responsibility. On Saturday, Ukraine rejects a U.S. draft deal trading rare earth minerals for military aid, saying it didn't contain sufficient security guarantees. Negotiations continue. Christians should be committed to praying for world leaders to be wise and to work toward peaceful resolutions while placing our hope in God, not government. 1 Timothy 2:1-2 says, "First of all, then, I urge that petitions, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgivings be made for everyone, for kings and all those who are in authority, so that we may lead a tranquil and quiet life in all godliness and dignity."
Imagine arriving in a new place after fleeing war or persecution, only to find that the help you hoped for is gone. Right now, millions of people in places like Sudan, the DRC, the US, and Haiti are losing access to shelter, food, and medical care as life-saving aid disappears. To fill this urgent need, World Relief needs you to help stand in the gap. Your gift today can provide housing, food, and other essentials for refugee families, plus emergency aid for vulnerable communities around the world. Go to worldrelief.org/gap now to stand in the gap. That's worldrelief.org/gap. Together, we can be the hands and feet of Jesus to those in crisis.
In other brews, here's a rapid round of updates. The DOJ dropped its corruption case against New York City Mayor Eric Adams Friday, but not before at least 6 federal prosecutors, including acting U.S. Attorney Danielle Sassoon, resigned rather than file the motion to dismiss. Sassoon claimed the charges were being dropped in exchange for Adams' vocal support of President Trump's immigration policies. Both Adams and the DOJ deny a quid pro quo. The White House indefinitely banned the Associated Press from the Oval Office and Air Force One for continuing to use Gulf of Mexico instead of Gulf of America, calling the editorial decision irresponsible and dishonest. The outlet said it writes to a global audience and claimed that barring access based on the content of AP's speech plainly violates the First Amendment. Winter's not done yet. A major storm system brought heavy rains, wind, and flash flooding across the South on Saturday night, causing at least 8 fatalities in Kentucky and 1 in Georgia. This week, an Arctic blast is chilling the Midwest, sending temps plunging about 40 degrees below average and bringing a high chance of blizzard conditions to the east. Pope Francis is showing some improvement after being admitted to the hospital for bronchitis on Friday. The 88-year-old pontiff didn't lead the Angelus prayer yesterday, a weekly reflection prayer and blessing delivered from the window of his study at the Vatican, after being prescribed complete rest. Instead, in a written prayer, he thanked healthcare workers and the public for their support. TikTok is back on the virtual shelves. The still Chinese-owned social media app returned to Google Play and Apple App Stores Thursday after the app's still up in the air ban led to its removal. Neither Google nor Apple gave a reason for making the app re-downloadable. A 75-day pause on the ban's enforcement has been in effect since January 20th. And that's all we have for today. Thanks so much for listening. If you're listening on the Apple Podcast app, give us a 5-star rating and drop a review. If you're listening on Spotify, give us a follow and hit the notification bell to never miss a new episode. We appreciate your support and hope you have a great day. We'll see you on Wednesday.
Need a New Year's resolution reboot? The 1-Year Chronological Study Bible guides you from Genesis to Revelation with daily readings in the order the events happened. Notes, articles, and reflection questions help you dive deeper. Plus, readings are marked by days, making it easy to stay on track all year long. Learn more at the link in our show notes.